Hey, welcome to Itoshima Crossing. Today we're going to talk about us, why we live in Japan, what life in Japan is like. There's construction going on in the Kominka right now, so we're going to go drive down to the beach and talk as we go.
Let's go!
Let's go.
Yeah, just like tell us about yourself, just like briefly.
So I'm from the US. I was born and raised in Colorado. I am an engineer, a firmware engineer. I work for a company remote. It's a US based company that has a branch in Japan. And so I do kind of programming and things like that. I work from home, fully remote. I've been working for that company for about 5 years.
Yeah, when was your first time to come to Japan? What brought you here?
Yeah, my first time in Japan was almost 10 years ago. I was a service, volunteer missionary, and I lived in Tohoku for 2 years. That was my first time ever to Japan, and I was there for 2 years living in Japan.
What was your impression about Japan?
Yeah, the first time I came to Japan, when I arrived, it was August, so first thing was it was hot. It was humid, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like this before. But I immediately became fond of the food. Something about the food here really stuck out to me as this is just great food. I didn't choose to come to Japan. I was assigned to Japan. So I knew nothing about Japan, and then I was just, boom, live in Japan for 2 years. I lived with native Japanese, in my apartment that I was living in.
Out of 10, how much you rate your Japanese skill right now?
Yeah, ooh.
10 is native.
10 is native. I would say 6 to 7, probably.
Okay. Wow, you're...
Yeah.
ちょっと謙遜しすぎじゃない?
No, yeah. No, man. It's because, let me tell you why. It's because reading and writing is where I can struggle.
Okay.
Especially, handwriting is just a mess. I'm like a kindergartner when it comes to handwriting Japanese.
Okay.
All right, we've arrived. Let's go to the beach. Let's go check it out.
いい感じじゃん.
Yeah.
Literally nobody here.
Nobody here. Yeah, it's weekday, middle of the day.
Wow, this place is pretty nice.
Right? Very nice.
いい感じじゃん. You living as a resident better than, coming here as a tourist?
I do.
Of course,
yeah.
there are pros and cons.
That's a good point. So, you could go as a tourist. You can go to Tokyo, you can go to Kyoto, and all these places, and line up and go to see the shrines and stuff. And that's all very beautiful and cool. But I think the best parts of Japan are kind of experienced. It's more nuanced and subtle. And it's like the ramen shop down the road that's run by a grandpa and grandma that have been there for 60 years. And you go there every week, and you just you come to love their food, and you're just inspired by how hard they've worked their entire lives, and they've dedicated to the craft of making one bowl of ramen. So these little things, I think, in the corners of Japan that you really only get to experience when you're here longer than normal tourists. Those, I think, are really special.
Yeah.
I enjoy.
If you have time and, money kind of allows you, I think I really recommend you guys to just live as a resident and experience because that kind of shape you up, because you have own values and cultures and stuff, but it might kind of affect you in a really good way to think differently and kind of be creative, and it kind of enriches your life. Yeah, so along with that, I think it's very important to talk about why we created this project.
Right, so Itoshima Crossing, we made it to help people get an experience and a taste of what it's like to live in Japan And even if they don't want to live in Japan for the rest of their lives, it's nice to be able to connect with the culture and experience kind of these parts of Japan that you can't normally experience as a tourist.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it's kind of hard to just, for you to decide and just give up everything and just come to Japan. But we really wanted to provide you guys to something like between tourist and perfect resident.
Right, exactly.
It's too early to get in, but during the summer,
yeah,
it's pretty nice. Okay, so after you graduate from your college in the US, and I think you work a couple years in the US as well, but you decided to come to Japan. But what made you think you want to move to Japan rather than US?
Yeah, I moved here a year ago, but I had previously lived in the US. I lived in San Diego. So why did we want to live in Japan? Why did we leave San Diego to move in Japan? Okay, yeah, so maybe I should talk about my family. Yeah. I'm married. My wife is Japanese. We have 2 kids.
Okay.
And so our youngest is 2 and our oldest is 4. So 2-year-old, 4-year-old. And living in San Diego was great, but there were a few factors that we looked at that really influenced our decision to move to Japan. One of them was having our kids kind of learn Japanese culture and the language, especially going through the Japanese like preschools and elementary schools. There's kind of like a part of Japanese identity that you can only get, maybe, we think, by kind of being raised in Japan in those early years.
Okay.
So for our kids, I think we wanted to have them have that experience.
Is that the main reason you come here, or?
I would say it's a primary reason. So it's one of the big reasons. It's not the only reason. I personally have always loved Japan. I kind of always wanted to live here. I love the food. I love the nature. I love the cities. I love the culture, the art, the craftsmanship, and things like this about Japan. So, but I could have traveled to Japan to enjoy that. I didn't need to live here. It fit our lifestyle better. I think we just clicked more with life in Japan, more maybe than life in the U.S.
I mean, yeah, same as me. I was born and raised in Japan until I was 21 or 22 or something. And then I lived in US for like 4 years and 2 years for my bachelor's and master's. But I mean, I loved living in the US as well.
Right.
I don't have any citizenship or as soon as I graduated, I lose my visas and stuff.
How long did you live in the US?
Total like 6 years.
Okay, so that's actually longer than I've lived in Japan total. It's a long time. So you were thinking that you maybe wanted to live in the US with your family for a long term.
The only reasons I want to live in the US is, I think, education for us. I think kind of same, because my kids are Japanese. I married to a Japanese woman, and we both speak Japanese at home. So my kids doesn't really speak English. So I really want them to speak or kind of touch with English as they grow and naturally.
One downside of Japan is the work environment, the work opportunities. So if you're like Kei and I, we're fortunate to have jobs that support us living here in Itoshima, in Fukuoka in Japan, outside of Tokyo, but we can still work at jobs that we like to work for. That's not trivial. That's not easy to find. And it's often, you hear that people get jobs in Japan where the salary is really low and they work a long time, look hard hours.
Yeah. How much on average you spend?
The cost of living?
The cost of living.
Roughly, it's half of what we spent in San Diego. So I would say rent and food and transportation,
everything.
Healthcare, all of that altogether is about half of what it was in the US. And I would say that monthly, you could definitely get by in Japan with including rent and healthcare and food and all of these expenses, your kind of utilities. I think you could definitely get by on $2,000 US, right?
Yeah.
So cost of living, that is a benefit of life in Japan.
I think a lot of people that kind of like underestimate it, this part, but I think safety is really, really huge.
Right.
Because especially like, when I moved to the Fukuoka, Itoshima here, my kids, like oldest kids, started going to the elementary school, and then she, walked to the school.
Oh.
We didn't even take her to the school.
Wow. Okay.
We don't have to drive. I was kind of scared. I mean, I was, raised in that way, but I was like lived in the US for like 6 years, and now, it's pretty scary after seeing like everything in the US.
Yeah.
But it was pretty chill, it's pretty good because you just say bye-bye.
And they just walk out the door.
Yeah, walk out the door and then go to the school, and that's it.
And she comes home, end of the day.
Yeah.
Just walks home. Wow. Kei, you were born in Japan, you tried living in less for 6 years, and ultimately you're back here in Itoshima.
Yeah.
I was born in the US. I've tried living in Japan. I've lived in San Diego for a long time, and here I am in Itoshima. We both kind of reached the same conclusion, just totally separately. We didn't talk to each other about it. We just actually ended up in Itoshima at the same time. And so that's what we're working towards, is sharing this with people, and having the Kominka is a place for people to come and stay and experience Itoshima, experience Japan, and to take their time doing it. Not to be rushing with itineraries and schedules, but to really just wake up and just kind of take in the beauty of life in Japan.
So I think last things I want to ask you is like, what type of person you want to, come to Itoshima?
Anybody who is interested in Japan. And you may have never been to Japan, you may have been here 10 times, you may actually live in Japan right now. Maybe you want to get out of Tokyo. I want to show people the part of Japan, the beauty of Japan that you can't really understand and see just going into Tokyo and going to all the big places and being surrounded by other tourists, and really anybody who wants to learn about the culture and craft and see more about what life in Japan is like.
Yeah.
If you're actually seriously thinking about living in Japan, leave us a comment, send us an email. We'll talk to you. Come to Itoshima Crossing, and we can help you understand how to find life in Japan. All right, well, that was me and Kei and our thoughts about life in Japan, a little bit of our stories, a little bit about Itoshima and Itoshima Crossing. We're excited to have people come and experience life here in Itoshima.
来てね.
Right? Okay, we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, see ya.
Bye.